You have already been exposed to the idea of design plans at some point during this degree program. This lecture will provide you with some common elements that go into one of these plans. Keep in mind that you won't need every element discussed here, and there may be some unique elements you will need that are not covered in this lecture. Every project is a little different, and depending on what emerging technology you choose, some of the elements in this lecture will be needed and others may not be needed at all. The goal here is to give you a general idea to help you get your creativity flowing without covering every possibility. Resources are always a top priority. We have to be realistic in what we can accomplish with the resources we have available. If it's a software application, we have to consider CPU, available memory, storage space, so that the computers used to operate the program have the necessary resources. Larger application development projects may require mass amounts of data storage, so we would also need to consider data warehouses, which leads to a need for many physical resources. The physical space needed for this technology within a building or office needs to be considered as well. The amount of manpower required to operate and maintain the technology also needs to be factored in. And the financial resources for power, salaries, rent, and other associated costs are all part of the resources. Training is another important variable in these design plans. Any new technology is going to require training for the individuals who will install, configure, and maintain the technology, and for the users who will use the technology during day-to-day operations. These are two different training requirements because one will need to go into the technical aspects of how to keep everything operating smoothly, and the other will be focused on how to use the technology to accomplish the goal of the implementation. So consider both of these pieces when you think about the training requirements. When we think about resources and personnel, we also need to dig a little deeper into how people react to changing technologies. People tend to resist change because it means they have to do something new, learn about something new, and set aside the way they used to perform a function. But change is usually a good thing, so we need to incorporate how to navigate this change. Anticipating and being prepared for unexpected occurrences is also important because a flawless implementation of any new technology is incredibly rare. Problems always arise, and when they do, it is our job to figure out how to solve them. Even in day-to-day operations, problems arise that will need to be solved. A design plan may also include an element on how to capture live errors for analysis and the process for how this will be accomplished. Anticipating problems ahead of time will make this a little easier if they do actually arise. Ultimately, everything comes down to effectiveness. It doesn't make much sense to implement something that is not going to be effective. So we have to think about each piece from the perspective of how the capabilities and functions will solve the problem at hand. If the plan will allow for the system to operate in a reliable manner that produces positive results, and if it will maintain this effectiveness over time. It's important for you to put some significant thought into this piece of the project. This was not an in-depth look at design plans. You have encountered that instruction already, so you should have a good understanding of what is needed. And as you work through this week's portion of the project, try to think through every element that would be needed if this was a real-life scenario. Think about problems that may occur. Think about the unique pieces your chosen technology will require. And consider the possibility that what has worked in the past may not work in this situation. This isn't a one-size-fits-all type of project where we can just plug in a few variables and check a few boxes. Implementing an emerging technology always comes with new challenges that must be solved. You may go through a few iterations before you finalize your submission, And what you come up with this week may even need to be modified as you continue to add content over the next few weeks. All of that is great. It's part of the process. And it is exactly how it tends to happen in organizations all over the world.